Debating sequels versus their predecessors is something all movie lovers have voluntarily gone through. To this day, there are great battles being waged over which flick is better. Is Empire better than A New Hope? Is Godfather 2 superior to the original? Did James Cameron top his classic Terminator with the revolutionary T2 Judgment Day? These are the important conversations that we geeks have with each other, and sometimes even with ourselves. Of course, there's never a need to choose one over the other. If you're feeling charitable, you can call it a draw between two great flicks. Still, it's a fun debate to have, although careful not to get too heated on the matter. James Cameron never intended to ruin friendships with his works of science fiction brilliance. But he did intend to create the ultimate sequel when he followed up the 1979 horror hit Alien with a bigger, badder epic that took the intimate haunted house setting of Ridley Scott's film and exchanged it for a battlefield. This time it's war, said the tagline, and they weren't messing around. While an excellent round two after the knockout punch Ridley delivered, and following the film's terrific protagonist into a new circle of hell, Aliens is its own beast, different enough to build on the legacy of the original while hitting some of the same crucial notes. Is it better than Alien?
What?
That's a fun debate to have, but one for another day. What isn't up for debate is that Aliens is one of the best sequels released in the 80s, and hell, it may just be the best horror sequel of all time. So stop your grinning and drop your linen, because we're going to nuke the site from orbit and relive some aliens in our 80s horror memories.
Aliens is a brilliant sequel because it's one of the few sequels that takes the premise and the mythology of the original film and leaps off in a totally different direction successfully.
The sequel to one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
I should be clear about one thing. I've seen Aliens more times than maybe any other movie ever made. I owned a VHS copy of it back in the day, and I'll be damned if I didn't wear that thing out after a few short years. Plenty of movies went through the same ringer. Halloween, Star Wars, RoboCop, but none so much as Aliens. There was something just so explosive about it. A shocking combination of action, science fiction, horror, and even drama that takes your stomach, bundles it up in knots, and doesn't let go until the end credits roll.
I don't know, I'm this much of a nerd, but if you go on YouTube now and you type in Aliens first time and reaction, you will watch people who are completely unfamiliar with Aliens and its power seeing it for the first time, and all it will do is allow you to remember what you felt like when you saw Aliens for the first time, because it's fucking awesome.
It's a powerful experience even if you've seen it 100 times, and it helps shape an entire generation of movie geeks. Think about your best buds from back in the day and tell me that they weren't just as enamored with Cameron's film as you. While there were so many movies that helped shape our tastes and love for the genre, Aliens had a particularly intense impact on our minds. Part of the appeal is that there was just nothing else like it at the time. Perhaps 1987's Predator could be seen as a close relative, but Aliens transports us into a frightening and lonely world where one never feels safe or comfortable. It's like a haunted house ride that lasts well over 2 hours, and by the end of it, your nerves have been thoroughly shredded, and you're quite grateful for the experience. Truth be told, when I was a young one, the original Alien was almost too grim of an experience to handle. It's so dark, so hopeless, so creepy. It might have been the scariest horror movie I'd ever seen at the time. I vaguely recall Aliens coming out and doing gangbusters, but I was honestly a little intimidated by it. If the first movie was scary with just one alien, how could I handle the sequel, which features a platoon of the vicious buggers? Eventually, I prepared myself for battle and watched the VHS of the movie. Safe to say, I haven't been the same since. What sticks out about those early viewings of the movie is that it messed with my emotions so effortlessly that my adolescent mind was actually impressed. I don't think I'd seen a movie that was somber 1 minute, then funny, then suspenseful, then horrifying. And back again for another round. You get the point. This wasn't just a thriller where things popped into frame every few minutes to give you a cheap thrill, but something closer to a nightmare, where a chance to breathe a sigh of relief was very hard to come by. At the risk of sounding pretentious in terms of a movie-going experience, it was pure cinema, a work of art that beats the hell out of you. My younger self appreciated that, and I sure as hell do to this day.
What also astounds me about Aliens is that what they achieved, it had such a big feel, that film, and it's all practical effects. I mean, that whole film is practical effects.
Of course, a handful of years later, the director's cut of the film would appear on Laserdisc. Talk about revelations. They don't get any bigger than that. Taking an already punishing movie of 2 hours and 17 minutes and adding 15 minutes to that, expanding upon Ripley's story while introducing brand new elements, such as showing us the colonists on LV-426, was a gift from the gods for us Aliens fans. That's the definitive cut of the movie, no doubt, but our discussion here can be applied to either version. They're both classics as far as we're concerned. Naturally, I never knew who the mad genius behind this masterpiece was. The Terminator was a seminal movie for me as well. Another incredible film that cleverly combined action, science fiction, horror, and drama. That film's director, James Cameron, quickly became a name to watch for cinephiles, and his much anticipated follow-up would be carefully examined. As we very well know by now, Mr. Cameron never half-asses it. When he yells action, he means it.
And the thing about Aliens that I love is when James Cameron went in to pitch to get the sequel, all he did was go in on the whiteboard, he wrote Alien, then he added an S, and then he added a $sign. And they were like, understood! We're done!
And it turned out that making a sequel to an instant classic like Alien was not going to be taken lightly. It would be a true sequel in the sense that it jumps off the ingredients the first film gave us, in this case, the setting, the villain, and most importantly, a hero who takes no shit from anyone, human or alien. Setting this movie 57 years after the original, Cameron's able to open the world up, add more characters, and ramp up the action while still maintaining the original's atmosphere of dread.
Now, the original Alien was the first R-rated movie I've ever seen. That was my first. That broke the seal. So obviously it had a huge impact on me because it's unbelievably well done. But if there was ever a slow burn, it's Alien. It's 2 hours long, and it takes a long time for shit to happen. I don't think audiences today have the patience. Unfortunately, the current culture has really whittled away allowing characters and situations to marinate so that when you do get to those big moments, they have more impact. Aliens was the inverse of that. You drop the needle in the middle of the record and you are off to the races, and that's okay. Aliens is still 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It's a really long movie, but you don't feel it at all because Cameron paces it so relentlessly.
Another debate that we can have is whether or not Aliens is an action movie, a science fiction movie, or a horror movie. Well, in fact, it's really no debate at all, because it's absolutely all of those things in one grisly package. There's no doubt that there is more action, in the traditional sense of the word, in this one as opposed to Alien, which was definitely more of a horror movie through and through. But for my money, Aliens also absolutely belongs in the horror section of the library, because underneath all that gunfire is a terrifying tale about a group of people being eliminated one by loathsome creatures who either kill or impregnate them. Monsters burst out of chests, face huggers pop out of nowhere, and acid blood is sprayed freely, melting the human flesh that it lands on. Yes sirree, this is a horror movie. It just happens to have a fair share of explosions as well. And action horror movies aren't exactly easy to pull off, because the two genres are often at war with each other,
Also, as a metaphor for the U.S. involvement in Vietnam and how we sort of let the troops down, there's a very clear-cut message in that movie if you're willing to look for it. But more than anything, it's got that double, triple ending that just takes you by the throat and thrusts you into the action in a way. There's this, I can't say enough about Aliens. It's so good.
But leave it to Jim Cameron to be an expert on the matter, or splatter. Let's talk about Ripley. While Alien made Sigourney Weaver a star, Aliens is the movie that confirmed Ellen Ripley was a character for the ages. In the first Alien, Ripley is a smart, proactive member of the crew who is often the stick in the mud, the voice of reason who rubs everyone the wrong way. She's the one who gets things right at any cost, which makes it no surprise that she's the sole survivor of that doomed mission. The Ripley we reunite with in Aliens is ultimately an immediate icon. When we meet her, she's dealing with PTSD, mourning the loss of her daughter, struggling to make ends meet, a sad, lonely life without much purpose on the face of things. Naturally, when asked to help with a rescue mission and possibly confront her toothy nemesis once again, she's not exactly in a rush to do so, but in order to conquer the demons in her mind, she's got to do it, and we believe it, even if it's a plot convenience for her to agree to go back. As Ripley, Weaver runs the gamut of emotions, from remorseful to angry to compassionate, and everything in between. Ripley never seems like less than a real person for even a second, and she's got our sympathy every step of the way.
Well, first of all, Sigourney Weaver, can we just say that she was a badass superhero without ever having to, as a woman, without ever having to say, I'm a woman and I'm going to be a strong woman in this movie. She was just a hero, and I think we owe her something for crossing the gender line in heroes. And doing it with such grace and such without anger and without a fist in the air, just saying there's a problem and I need to help fix it.
Sigourney Weaver received an Oscar nomination for this performance, and for the Academy to recognize a horror film in an acting category tells you everything that you need to know about Weaver's excellent work. Ripley is still the kick-ass movie heroine that all others are measured against. But don't get me wrong, the rest of the cast is absolutely vital to the film's success, especially since it's such a sizable ensemble. It would be easy for Cameron to make the soldiers dispensable, one-note nobodies, but he gives us a handful of intriguing characters who are more than they initially seem. Michael Baine's Hicks at first fades into the background early on, not making as much of an impression as other more showy personalities that take center stage. But after the shit hits the fan, we see that Hicks is a natural-born leader who's able to maintain his cool under immense pressure, and Bain gives a realistic portrayal of a grunt who reluctantly rises to the challenge. An unforgivable character comes in the form of Private Vasquez, and let's be honest, a lot of us had never seen a lady like this before. Perhaps the most physically intimidating character in the film, her introduction is an eye-opener, easily doing pull-ups that would make most dudes tremble. While she's not exactly a multi-layered person, Vasquez has our attention throughout, thanks to her stone-faced heroics and determination to save what's left of her squad. Leave it to Cameron to not be satisfied with just one imposing female in his arsenal. And do I really have to give a shout out to Bill Paxton? Don't we all know how amazing he is in this and any movie? Yes, I do, and yes, we do. Interestingly enough, Paxton's Hudson might be the most memorable human character after Ripley in the movie. Starting off as an impossibly brash loudmouth who talks a big game, he's almost immediately revealed to be a childish wimp when the going gets tough. And to be fair, you can't really blame the guy after some of the stuff that he sees go down.
This isn't happening.
But the movie lets Hudson regain his composure as it moves along. Cameron isn't content to just let him be an annoyance who deserves to die ASAP. The tragedy, of course, is that just when Hudson gets his balls back, he's done in by the aliens, who don't really give a crap about character arcs. Still, Paxton is absolutely perfect casting for the role, and it's an understatement to say he's still missed to this day. Other faces emerge distinctly. Carrie Henn as Newt, the little girl who braves it all. Henn's performance isn't necessarily an all-timer, but give the kid credit. She's dealing with a hell of a lot in front of and behind the camera. That we care about Newt just as much as Ripley does is all that matters, and no doubt Henn makes that happen for us. Lance Henriksen also cuts a very memorable figure as the android Bishop.
Thank you.
About whom we're slightly nervous considering the events of the first film and its sinister artificial human. Henriksen displays just enough emotion to gradually get us on Bishop's side, and his heroics at the end of the film give us a reason to truly appreciate the misunderstood fellow. It still just might be Henriksen's definitive role. And then there's Paul Reiser as Carter Burke. Burke belongs to that very special class of horror movie villain.
Paul Reiser, the evil corporate America at work, who'd fuck over anyone for profit and pays the price for it.
He's not the big bad, but he's a detriment to our heroes and a sniveling, underhanded weasel to boot. We're talking slime balls like Frederick Chilton in Silence of the Lambs, Dr. Cruz in Friday the 13th Part 7, Rhodes in Day of the Dead. These guys are monsters in human form, and we simply cannot wait for them to get their just desserts. Burke is at the top of this particular class. Not only is he responsible for unleashing the alien on the colony, killing dozens of families in the process, he learns no lesson from his deed and keeps on shilling for the soulless company that he works for. Sounds very 2023. Even being a witness to a mass slaughter doesn't change the bottom line for Burke, as he's willing to sacrifice every last one of his human companions just so he can suck up to his corporate overlords. Best known for his comedic chops, Paul Reiser crushes it as a spineless tool without a shred of human empathy. Burke is an asshole for the ages. When he meets his fate, the universe cheers. The film's finale was, for me, the most enthralling part of the entire adventure, and it's certainly etched into all of our minds forever by now. Ripley racing to save Newt, meeting the fearsome queen, the close call escape while James Horner's Bishop's Countdown epically blares over the soundtrack, and then, of course, the showdown for the ages. Bad Mama against Bad Mama in a battle for who's really the queen of the galaxy. Of course, we know who the crown belongs to, although it's too close for comfort at the very end. And as an aside, the alien queen remains one of the most awesome practical effects in movie history. It's a real shame to think that they barely make them like that anymore. Thank the gods that we still have this one, gone hurtling through space to her doom, but not close to being forgotten.
The escalation of that movie, how it escalates, how when you finally get to the battle with the loader and Ripley and the loader and the alien queen, it's just like, oh my god, you've even if you didn't do that, that movie's amazing. If you ended it when they just left the planet, that movie's amazing. When you do that sequence, you said that it's why so much of that franchise got fucked, because that set the bar too high for anybody else to be able to follow. And it's like Alien 3, I pity those fuckers. There's no way you're gonna even come close to that, because how can you? And that franchise has never risen to that height again.
There are only a handful of movies that stick with you in the same way they did when you were first warming up to them. Those are the movies that work on us on all levels. Emotionally, intellectually, viscerally. Aliens is one of those films. From the simple but crafty screenplay, to the superb cast, to every person on the tech side working at the absolute peak of their capabilities. With The Terminator and then Aliens, James Cameron announced to the world that he was no ordinary director, but a man on a mission to blow us away each time we went into one of his movies. He has, as of this writing, not stopped doing that. His legacy is already very much in place. What's his best movie? Well, that's another one of those debates that we could have. And what a challenging one that is, because there are several candidates, but I know the one that truly changed things for me, that will forever be one of the defining movie experiences of my life. That's Aliens, one of the best 80s horror memories a guy could ask for.
One of my favorite films of all time, Aliens. And I got to puppeteer on Aliens. So I got to be on that set and see that stuff happen. And that was just incredible to have a front row seat to that movie making history. I got to puppeteer in the scene in the med lab when they're checking out the face huggers, and one of them lunges against the thing. I'm helping with that, and its tongue is like, bleh. And then I also got to do a little bit of Queen puppeteering in some of the Alien Queen sequences. There were quite a few puppeteers in those scenes, about eight of us. And on the days that I would show up after school or on weekends, Stan would always say, hand him a controller, show him what to do. And I got to help puppeteer the Alien Queen in a couple moments, and that was pretty awesome.
On the next episode, we take a look at the devious secrets hidden behind the suburban white picket fences with blue velvet. Until next time, gore hounds.
Hi friends, your humble narrator Tyler Nichols here, and I hope that you enjoyed that episode of 80s Horror Memories. If you missed our previous episode, click over here. If you want to see more from our series, click up here. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Subscribe right here. And most importantly, stay spooky, folks.